I'm going to try something new tonight. As you can see, I'm going to start with my translation rather than the Chinese, because I don't believe in translation, and I think it's always a distortion. But I think if I read this in a book, it would not sound bad, and I would be curious about what the words that they were translating as I've written there really were. So read it and see if you think it makes sense.
You're not going to read it to us?
I'll read it to you. I thought you'd never ask.
With her bright-eyed focus.
First, the Jin Jing Gong requires that movement and stillness be tied together. First there is movement, then stillness. The tendons and the low net become interconnected. The tendons' movements lead the low net's movement. The meridians moving through the tendon body is the forging practice, the duan liang. And when the meridians and the low net's connection is unimpeded, this is the foundation for the elixir work. And the end we have been moving toward. Now, isn't that intriguing?
Yeah.
Yes.
I want to do the elixir work.
Forging practice.
Yeah, that's. Okay, so we'll go back. I think it's always much more interesting what it says, character by character, literally. And see if it's still, it's not that different from what it's actually saying. And I think just the Chinese language, the fact that we're also at the same time learning basic Chinese words that are useful in many other contexts. Like Xiao Xian, which really means firstly or primarily or to begin with. But it quite literally is head first, which is, that's kind of a cool phrase, I think. So he starts with the name of the system, the Jin Jing Gong, the tendon meridian. I'm going to translate that as work, but it's got a much bigger context in Chinese, of course, meaning the strength that comes from work. Just work itself is just this half of it, the half on the left, the gong radical.
Are you just pulling the pinion off Wenlin?
No, off Google.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so work, the word for work and the word for strength, and it's the same word as is in Qigong and Gong Fu. And it doesn't just mean work, it really means the strength that comes as the result of work. It's like achievement, particularly when you talk about Kung Fu, that's what you're talking about. Also, when the Buddhists talk about merit, like when you do something that seems stupid, like spinning a prayer in a wheel around and around, like they do, and you ask, why are we doing this? They say, it's for merit. You gain merit by doing prayers and things that focus your attention on the above. The word that, the Chinese word that they're translating as merit is gong. Same word. So, so the name of this particular Qigong system is the tendon, meridian, gong. First character, tendon, you can see on the top of it bamboo, which is the primary image that you need to have in order to understand the fascia, the tendons, the structure that holds the body together. It's like bamboo. It stretches and is flexible and hard to break. Bamboo is really the image you need to hold in terms of what fascia is. And then, of course, on the left is the meat radical, which means it's a body part. And on the right, strength. So it's essentially the strength of bamboo is the fascia, the tendons. And Jing is, on the left is the radical for silk. It's like a skein of silk, and all things having to do with silk and that are abstracted using silk as an image have that radical. And on the right is a drawing of a silk loom with the work threads on it. And basically this word Jing is the foundation of something, anything, and they use it with Chinese culture as well. A Jing is a foundational book like the Neijing or the Tao Te Ching, and it's the thing that holds it together that you don't see, the work threads of a loom, which then get covered over with knots and patterns and weft threads. But if the work threads weren't there, the longitudinal lines of force that is the foundation of it, then you would have a weaving. And they just abstracted that both to the idea of classics in terms of the cultural foundations of the civilization, as well as what?
Listening.
Now you have to tell me.
Oh, it was just eating noises.
Oh, eating noise. Do you think it's Krista?
Oh, I just think there's an orchestra of eating noises.
in the background, it's going to drive Martha crazy.
I'm glad I'm here live tonight, but
I expect the behavior in the next 8 weeks.
It's almost as if talking about it is more distracting.
Well, the thing is, we have this modern technology. I can see by the way the lines jump up and down that this is something I should look at and maybe cut out for the ignorant public who don't understand the way real transmission takes place.
I'm not quite sure what you
What's that?
I said I'm not quite sure what you just said.
Oh, good.
said.
Maybe you'll think it meant something. So I was talking about work threads, foundation, loom. And he says these two words really describe the most important aspects of the system. And they're related to each other like yin and yang. One is physical, the other is not. The Jing, the meridians, he's referring to what's ordinarily known in Chinese medicine as the meridians. Which are not visible, certainly, and maybe only theoretical, and maybe possible in some people, and a fantasy in others. It's hard to know, but it's kind of at the root of what you start to learn first day in Chinese medicine, that there are these meridians, these lines of force that run around the body that the points are on. So this system basically is a way to connect with whatever that is, the Jing, or whether it's create them or become aware of them or whatever, these lines of force through which the life force flows in the body. The connection between the fascia, which is the tendons, what you can actually experience and work with and move in the body, the connection between the fascia and the Jing. And by using these particular exercises with breathing and stretching and moving the fascia in a particular way, you open up and become either aware or make within yourself the Jing, the meridians, the lines of force. Okay, so first, in terms of the Jin Jing Gong, it requires that movement and stillness be tied together, which, you know, if you've actually done the practice for a while, you realize, oh yeah, it starts with extreme movement and then goes to stillness. And the stillness is probably more important than the movement. So that's hard for people to grasp at first because people are so wound up in movement. But this goes, you know, refers back, of course, to the Jing Qing Jing. Remember the Qing Jing Jing?
The clear light, or
The Taoist scripture of clarity and stillness. This was the first text that was given to Wang by Li Jie after the Tao Te Ching, and which I sing every day to the YouTube. And have memorized a great deal of it, and find that really memorizing something like that really helps. I really start to get much more of a feel for what they're talking about when they're talking about Qing, stillness. You know, that odd sensation that comes over you certain times when you're doing Qigong where everything stops and it's totally quiet. And that's what they're going for. That's what the practice is trying to nourish. And nourish it by hooking up extreme movement and then going into extreme stillness.
So you singing it is helping you feel that stillness?
Yeah. And also the clarity.
And when you sing it or when you do Qigong?
Both. Just to understand more what they're talking about. Because I've come to realize that unlike immortality, clarity and stillness is achievable. You know, most days, if you do the practice, you can have moments of clarity and stillness, and that's where I think they're recommending you start by studying that process, the duality between movement and stillness, and between confusion and clarity. And that song tells you how to do it. But I think this is clearly what he's referring to here, is that this system incorporates that idea primarily. You start with movement to move toward stillness, but it's really the stillness that you're going for.
Hey Bill,
Uh-huh.
can it be reversible? Start with stillness and go into movement? Would that mean
Well,
anything?
we do, you know, if you know, we can't stay still for all that long.
I know,
I
but
can't,
you
you know,
said
that's why I do
movement
Qigong
is-
rather than Vipassana. I can't stay still. My body won't, you know, it has to start moving again. So it's this cycle of movement to stillness, back to movement, and the more focused you are in your movement and the more you vibrate, then the easier it is to drop into stillness and have it actually happen. So the whole basis of the system is in the beginning to tie those two together. First movement, then stillness, which enables the Jin Lo to mutually connect. Now, Those of you who have become licensed in Chinese medicine, can you tell me, if you would, what the lo is? What he's referring to there?
Come on, what was
Not a
that?
trick question. It's something that you have to, it's translated as collateral or connectors, like the low points. You know, these meridians that connect the yang meridians together, you know, and they define it kind of as this general, well, actually, it's analogous to fascia, but in the world of qi. It's like this net of qi, out of which the meridians, or through which, or like Ed Neal talked about the meridians as being river valleys in the body, that it's easier for the qi to flow into and create a stream, whereas the lo is this net of qi that, well, I'm going to skip to where he defined it a couple pages before. You got your meridians, and you got your lo. And then the question, you know, so the lo, this, and this word lo in basic Chinese just means net, quite literally like a fishing net. That's the original meaning of it. But it is used in Chinese medicine with this specific meaning of the net of the connections all through the body in the qi body. You can think of it kind of like the electromagnetic body. You know, if you pull back, if you have some kind of machine that can read the electromagnetic body, you see it's like it's all over. It's even though the nerves have a lot more electromagnetism in them, the whole body has electricity in it. And whereas you've got the nerves that conduct the electricity, you've got the meridians that conduct the qi out of the lo. But the lo is the whole net that is the qi body as at this point we have it, right? Just like electricity, you know, we have qi, and what he's saying here is, okay, so where is the lo? He figured maybe somebody would ask that question because it's really poorly defined in in Chinese medicine. The references to it are really vague. So he says that in the human body, inside the bone marrow. Well, that's kind of interesting. Inside the bone marrow? Inside the fluid that's the blood. So inside the blood also is the lo. In every strip of shunjing. Now I never knew that till Wen Lun told me. Shunjing, that's an interesting word. That's the spirit meridian, which in modern contemporary Chinese is the medical word for nerve, which is kind of cool. So inside every nerve, inside the muscle and the flesh, and in every tiny cell. So he's talking about something that's subtle energy, some sort of subtle force that's even more subtle than electricity, and much less subtle than lapping tongues in the water below.
You gotta pass. You gotta pass that. It's okay.
Okay, so that's what the lo is.
I know you're hungry. I'll feed you when you get home.
So what we're trying to do is connect the Jin with the Lo, the fascia with this net of chi, of life, that is contained within the body. So when the tendons move, and then this word die, I think, is interesting because it originally is a picture, and you can see it's a picture of a bell, right? But as a verb, it's come to mean leads. So the tendons moving lead the Lo to also move. You move the Lo, you start to move the energy, the chi in the body by moving the tendons.
Walk forward.
It'll make it more fun and colorful for you.
I feel like I'm there.
It's not like these boring podcasts where these guys have these big fat microphones and earphones on,
And
and
the
it's all
screens that
clear
block
and
out.
makes sense. This is more alive, more real. So the tendons move, which leads the Lo to move. The tendons move. There's this interface between the fascia and the Lo, the chi that's in the body. And so you can start to move that chi by moving the tendons in particular transmitted patterns, ways.
What chapter is this from in his book?
That same chapter that I started on, it's kind of like
The last chapter.
the foundational principles in the afterword.
Mm.
Yeah. So the meridians then pass through the tendon's body. What that is what he's calling the Duan Liang, which is kind of an interesting word, because if you put it in one line, it talks about some sort of refinement through a process.
Like smelting or something like that?
Well, in reality, it comes from metallurgy, and you can see
Metal radical?
the metal radical on the left. It is a picture of a forge, essentially, and
Which one?
this one, which
The one
this
that
is
has
the
a little roof
simplified.
on
This one,
top.
yeah. This is the radical for metal. And this is like, you can see the bricks and the fire and all of that. It's a picture of a forge, quite literally. And the other one has the fire radical, and also like a furnace that has something happening inside, and it's essentially the word for smelting. So they're both words that come from metallurgy, which of course came from alchemy. And it is a picture of something that you are practicing, that you are doing in your Dantian. This is essentially the Chinese code word for the smelting of fire, light in your Dantian. That's at the heart of the practice. So what you want to do through this process of moving the tendons that move the Lo, that moves chi through the meridians that is part of this internal practice of making something in this furnace of the physical body. So with this meridian collateral part of it, or meridian low, Jing low, the connection between them are unimpeded. That is the end toward which we are moving in the Dongong. You of course recognize this word is the same word as Don Tiān. It is the picture there again of a crucible, inside which is gold. You are creating a force in this furnace in your lower belly that is going to result in gong, merit, some sort of force that then you can work with. And this is the solid, real foundation base of it. That you tie movement with stillness. As you fill the dawn with golden light. Would you like to see someone who puts it into practice, or would you want to do more Chinese?
Practice.
I've forgotten what the collateral means again when you say the meridian's collateral.
Yeah.
I start thinking of money and, collateral
Oh,
powers.
collateral meaning what connects two things.
Collateral.
Collateral,
Yeah,
yes.
and,
That's
and, and,
different.
and similar to latitude as opposed to longitude.
Mhm.
See, the idea is that the meridians are like meridians on the earth. They're longitude, right? Whereas the low are like the collateral, the latitude that connects the longitude.
I think it's
in the
interesting to
system.
think of electricity and magnetism. Right, the electricity will run through like a wire, and then magnetism is created perpendicular.
Right.
To
Yeah,
it.
it's like the field
Right,
of energy that the moving of electrons.
creates
Creates.
a perpendicular field.
And I think the laws of Qi are very, very
Yeah.
similar, but more subtle.
Right.
So you're focusing on the Jing, or on the tendons, not on the fascial
The net.
net. Is that what you're saying?
Where's the tendons in it?
I think you start with the tendons because they're easier to find sensorily, right? You can find these tendon planes, like is described in chapter 13 of the Neijing, the tendon, the Jing Jin, the tendon meridians, which basically describes, it's like Neil said, it describes a fascial plane. That's an actual thing. There are these 12 fascial planes that you can identify and recognize. And you can, myself, I'm not quite to that level, really, where I can focus that much on individual fascial planes. I, in general, focus on the whole lobe, the net of force that makes up the energy body, essentially. That, I think, is easier to get in touch with than the actual individual meridians. I see the individual meridians more as something more advanced people get more and more of an ability to focus on and make the chi that's generated from this work with fascia pulling on the lobe to create that force, that movement more. Does that make any sense?
So the character for the low has the silk radical.
Yes,
Makes me think of silk reeling exercises
yes,
as a way to strengthen the fascial
yeah,
planes.
yeah, and I think that's where they come from, is this idea that instead of strengthening muscle, you strengthen fascia by stretching it and moving it in this gentle,
Torquing sort of.
yeah, this torquing spiral thing, like pulling silk from a cocoon.
Right.
That was the original image of reading silk.
Mhm.
And I think that is the movement that puts you in touch with the low, the subtle,
Yeah.
that really is like reeling silk.
Roll the ball.
Yeah. And this kind of the idea of the fascia as opposed to the low, which is like, one is like physical and literal, and the other is more subtle, and you can't really prove it scientifically.
I have the feeling that live up to your name is a translation of something that's probably
But it's Koreans practicing classical Chinese medicine. This is a
Indeed.
this is a lovers across time soap opera,
Oh.
Korean soap opera. This is a lady surgeon in 20th century America that's cutting into people's hearts and then going out into discos and dancing and living a modern life of
Wow.
a contemporary woman.
Wow.
And they are going to connect through time.
They're gonna the acupuncturist
Through
and
time?
the surgeon. Through
Yeah.
time, I'm
Did
so into it.
Kendra introduce you to this one?
No, I found it all by myself.
This is on Netflix.
Is it Netflix? Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you introduce it to Kendra
Wow.
yet?
No.
She likes those Korean soap operas.
Do you want to see what the girl is like? She's really kind of interesting.
Yeah,
Yes.
I don't know what you mean by interesting, so
God, still not used
screen you
to it.
on the way to another country.
Yeah.
You have to show us.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah,
that.
it is fun.
Honestly.
But,
We're just watered down Chinese acupuncture. We're not real.
there we go. This is what she does right after she gets out of surgery.
God, where is she?
She's a
Where's
modern
she?
woman.
That's all she did.
Alright, that's
So
weird.
can you imagine what's going to happen when they get together?
What, over time and space? Or?
What?
Yeah, that's
Like
what.
in which time did they get together?
I haven't gone that far. This is as far as I got.
What's the name of it again?
I don't know, this is about what I've seen too.
Live up to your name.
Live up to your name. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think it may be more than just a movie. I think it may be a series. They may go back and forth through time for all kinds of adventures.
That sounds so stressful.
Thanks.
It does sound exhausting. It's like meeting someone in Camas and you live down northeast
It's hard
or
enough.
something.
Depends how they time travel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, what the
Easier than
portal
Camas.
is.
Like, is it-
I haven't gone far enough to see
Well,
what.
Somebody's body.
What the
I
Colin's
bet.
not into it no matter
It's
what.
gonna be something weird.
No.
See, half an hour early.
That's so great.
What if time travel
It's
feels
so
really
packed.
good?
Ready?
Can I give you a, okay, maybe, thank you, Bill.
What?